Mission log, Orbital Research Station Helios. Date, March 17, 2037. Subject, Dr. Maya Chun, Isolation Study, Day 47. Format, Personal Journal. It's been 47 days since I've seen another human face. Not in person, at least. The weekly video calls with mission control don't count. Pixelated approximations of people I once knew, their expressions delayed by the 3-second transmission lag. Real connection requires presence, something I willingly sacrificed for this mission. 6 months alone on Helios to study the psychological effects of deep space isolation. The irony isn't lost on me. I'm both researcher and subject. The station creaks around me as it adjusts to the temperature differential between Earth's shadow and direct sunlight. These sounds have become my companions. The gentle hum of air circulators, the periodic clicks of thermal expansion, the soft beep of systems running their automatic diagnostics. I've cataloged them all, mapped their rhythms into the background noise of my existence. Tonight was different. I was conducting my evening observations through the cupola module. The Earth hung below, a swirl of blue and white against the perfect black. Jupiter was visible, a bright point in the distance. I've always found astronomical observation calming, a reminder of perspective when the walls of Helios feel too close. I was charting a distant star cluster near Cassiopeia, nothing I hadn't done dozens of times before, when I noticed something unusual. The stars weren't right. 5 particular stars in the cluster seemed arranged, not randomly distributed as they should be, but positioned with deliberate symmetry. 2 above, positioned like eyes. 1 below, where a nose would be. 2 more beneath that, curved slightly like a mouth. A face, crude but unmistakable, formed from stars that should have been random points of light. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes. The pattern remained. I'm not prone to pareidolia. My psychological evaluations have always shown strong resistance to pattern-seeking fallacies. It's partly why I was selected for this mission. My mind doesn't create companions from nothing during isolation. Yet there it was, staring back at me from the void. I took photos, checked star charts. These particular stars shouldn't form this configuration from my vantage point. I spent 3 hours cross-referencing data, convinced I'd find some explanation. Orbital debris catching starlight, perhaps, or an undocumented satellite cluster. Nothing. The face remained unexplained. I was still working when my helmet, stored on its rack across the module, emitted a soft, alert tone. Oxygen irregularity detected. The sound startled me in the silence. I wasn't wearing the helmet, wasn't scheduled for any EVA activities. It shouldn't have been powered on. I floated over to examine it, the magnetic soles of my station shoes disengaging with soft clicks. The helmet's internal display was active, scrolling diagnostic information too quickly to read before it winked out. When I lifted the helmet, it was completely powered down, no evidence of the alert. I ran a full diagnostic on my EVA gear. Everything checked out nominal. No oxygen irregularities, no system activations. According to the logs, the helmet hadn't been powered on since my last exterior maintenance cycle 2 weeks ago. I should report this to Commander Reyes at Houston. Protocol dictates all equipment anomalies be documented, but something holds me back. The psych evaluations are reviewed weekly, and any sign of cognitive deterioration would end my mission. 6 months of preparation, the opportunity of a career, terminated because of what? A false alert and stars that looked like a face? No, this is precisely what my research addresses, how isolation affects perception and decision-making. I'll document it in my personal logs and monitor for recurrence. If it happens again, I'll report it. Scientific method. Observation before conclusion. I returned to the cupola after logging the incident, determined to prove to myself the face was gone or explainable. The star cluster had rotated slightly with the station's orbit, but the pattern remained. 5 stars, arranged in a crude face. Only now, I could swear the eyes were angled differently, as though the face had turned slightly to follow the station. Sleep didn't come easily. I lay in my sleep restraints, thoughts cycling between rational explanations and increasingly irrational fears. Deep space does things to the human mind. This is documented fact, the very foundation of my research. Cosmic radiation, circadian disruption, sensory deprivation. All can induce minor hallucinations, particularly after the 45-day mark. I'm right on schedule for the first cognitive manifestations of isolation. This morning, I received a transmission from Dr. Elias Novak, my former research partner and mentor. His message was routine: updates on duplicate experiments being run on Earth, personal encouragement, questions about my data collection. I nearly mentioned the face but decided against it. Elias would understand the phenomenon scientifically, might even find it fascinating, but the transmission logs are reviewed by the entire mission team. Instead, I asked if he remembered any participants in our Earth-based isolation studies reporting visual phenomena involving pattern recognition. His response came hours later. Pattern recognition abnormalities typically manifest in auditory hallucinations first, hearing voices in white noise, interpreting random sounds as speech. Visual pareidolia comes later, usually around day 60 to 70. Why do you ask? Are you experiencing something noteworthy, Maya? I deflected, claiming it was relevant to the cognitive association tests I'm running. He didn't press further. Today marks 48 days now. I've maintained my schedule rigorously: physical exercise, cognitive assessments, station maintenance, research protocols. Routine is the anchor that prevents psychological drift. Yet I find my work interrupted by frequent glances toward the cupola. The face is only visible at certain orbital positions, disappearing as we circle Earth, reappearing 90 minutes later in exactly the same stellar configuration. This shouldn't be possible. The helmet alert came again just as I was finishing dinner, a meal of rehydrated chicken and vegetables that takes considerable imagination to connect with actual food. Oxygen irregularity detected. This time I was closer, watched as the internal display flickered with information before shutting down again. In the brief moment the screen was active, I saw oxygen levels fluctuate wildly. 100% to 0% to 85% to 17%, numbers flashing too quickly to track. When I checked the system logs afterward, nothing. No record of activation, no power drain. Technical specialist Torres is scheduled for a systems check tomorrow. I should tell her about the helmet. That would be the responsible action. Yet something about the correlation between the stellar face and these alerts gives me pause. Is it merely coincidence that both began on the same day? Tonight, I'll move my sleep station to the cupola module. If the face appears again during sleep cycle, I want to observe it directly, map its appearance against our orbital position. Perhaps there's a scientific explanation waiting to be discovered. Or perhaps, after 48 days alone in space, my mind is finally creating the human connection it craves, finding faces in the random scatter of distant suns. Either possibility should concern me more than it does. Mission log, Orbital Research Station Helios. Date, March 19, 2037. Subject, Dr. Maya Chun, Isolation Study, Day 49. Format, Personal Journal. The oxygen irregularity alerts are increasing in frequency. 3 yesterday, 5 today. Each time, the same mechanical voice from my EVA helmet. Oxygen irregularity detected. Each time, the same wild fluctuations on the internal display before it goes dark. Each time, no record in the system logs. Technical specialist Torres connected from Houston this morning. I didn't mention the helmet alerts. How's life in the fish tank, Dr. Chin? Torres asked, her face occasionally freezing on my screen before catching up with her voice. She was eating something while typing, breakfast tacos, she told me. The casual mention of Earth food made my rehydrated breakfast paste seem even less appetizing. All systems normal, I replied, the lie sitting uncomfortably. Just the usual creaks and groans. Your oxygen recyclers are showing some minor efficiency drops, she said, scrolling through data I couldn't see. Nothing concerning, probably just dust accumulation on the filters. I'm scheduling a maintenance check for you tomorrow. I felt a chill. Had she somehow detected the helmet warnings? But no, she was talking about the station's main life support systems, not my EVA equipment. I'll take care of it, I assured her. Also, your sleep patterns look irregular the past 2 nights. Medical's asking if there's anything they should know. They're watching my biometrics, of course. The small monitor implanted under my skin before launch transmits everything. Heart rate, blood pressure, sleep cycles, stress indicators. I forced a smile. Just excited about some new data patterns. You know how it is when research starts yielding results. She didn't look convinced, but didn't press further. After running remote diagnostics on various station systems, she signed off with a casual, "Try to actually sleep, Chin. Cosmic revelations can wait until after REM cycle." Her choice of words, cosmic revelations, lingered after the transmission ended. I completed the scheduled oxygen recycler maintenance immediately after. The filters showed normal dust accumulation, nothing that would explain efficiency drops. While working, I kept glancing toward the storage unit where my EVA helmet rested. Silent now, waiting. The face in the stars has become more defined. What was once a crude suggestion of features has gained specificity. The two stars forming the eyes now seem to have distinct pupils, pinpricks of more intense light at their centers. The mouth stars have shifted subtly, angled in what almost resembles an expression. Curiosity? Amusement? I can't quite name it. I've checked and rechecked the star charts. According to all astronomical data, these stars should be hundreds, even thousands of light years from each other. They cannot form a pattern from any vantage point. Yet I see it clearly every 90 minutes as Helios completes another orbit. Last night, I performed a calibration check on the cupola's observation equipment, convinced I'd find some flaw in the glass or cameras creating the illusion. Everything tested normal. I photographed the phenomenon at 30-minute intervals through a complete orbital rotation, then analyzed the images. In the photographs, the pattern is merely random stars. This discovery disturbed me more than if the face had appeared in the images. It means the pattern exists only in my direct observation. My mind is creating meaning from randomness. Classic pareidolia. Except I've never experienced this before, and the precision of the pattern defies the typical fuzzy approximations of facial pareidolia. While reviewing the photos, my helmet activated again. Oxygen irregularity detected. I ignored it, focused on my analysis. The alert repeated louder. Oxygen irregularity detected. Something in the urgency of the tone made me turn. The helmet's display showed a rapidly declining oxygen level, 62%, 51%. 43%. I rushed over, checked the tanks, they registered full. The regulators showed no malfunction. The moment I touched the helmet, the display reset to normal levels, then powered down. I sat back, pulse racing. Equipment malfunction? Or is my isolation-stressed brain creating correlations between unrelated phenomena? The face appears, the helmet warns, a pattern my mind desperately wants to form into meaning. I've decided to start a separate research log specifically documenting these incidents. If they're hallucinations, the act of structured documentation might help maintain my grip on reality. If they're real, the data could prove valuable. Anomaly log, incident number 1. Day 47. First observation of stellar face pattern in Cassiopeia region. First helmet alert. Oxygen irregularity detected. No system record of alert. Face pattern visible only during specific orbital positions. Anomaly log. Incident hashtag 2-9. Days 48 to 49. Multiple helmet alerts. Increased definition in stellar face pattern. Pattern visible to naked eye but absent in photographic evidence. Correlation between helmet alerts and direct observation of pattern. I need to rule out physiological causes. Cosmic radiation exposure is a constant risk in orbit, despite the station's shielding. Neural effects can include visual distortions, auditory hallucinations, and temporal disorientation. I've increased my daily dosage of anti-radiation supplements and run a full medical self-assessment. The results showed elevated cortisol levels expected under isolation conditions, but otherwise normal neurological function. No radiation exposure beyond acceptable parameters. This afternoon, I received another message from Dr. Novak. Unlike his usual precise, academic communications, this one seemed hurried, almost cryptic. Maya, your question about pattern recognition anomalies has me reviewing some archived data from the Artemis lunar isolation trials, particularly subject A7's journals after day 50. There were incidents that never made the official reports. Call when your orbital position allows secure transmission. Use Protocol Delta for encryption. Some things shouldn't be on open channels. Protocol Delta is reserved for sensitive research data, not personal communications. What could Novak have found that requires such security? The Artemis trials were early lunar habitat tests, 3 astronauts living in isolated lunar modules for 4 months. The published results showed minor psychological strain, but nothing unusual. Before I could request clarification, Commander Reyes sent an official mission update. All station personnel be advised, solar activity increased to level 2. Moderate radiation event predicted within 72 hours. Standard protocols in effect. Exterior operations postponed until further notice. Solar storms are routine, but the timing seems strangely convenient, Just as Novak hints at information about isolation-induced phenomena, external factors force a delay in our communication. The station alert system chimed softly, displaying the official warning. Attention, solar radiation event imminent. Level 2 protocols engaged. Exterior operations suspended. Radiation shielding at nominal levels. Maintain normal operations. I must wait until the radiation levels decrease before I can have a secure call with Novak. In the meantime, the helmet has fallen silent. No alerts for the past 6 hours. The face in the stars, however, has changed again. During my last observation, the stellar eyes seemed to blink, 2 stars momentarily dimming before returning to full brightness. Stars don't blink in space. There's no atmospheric distortion to cause twinkling. They simply don't blink. Unless… No, I won't go down that path. Not yet. I need more data, more observations, more evidence that what I'm experiencing has a scientific explanation. Tonight, I'll run a full diagnostic on my EVA helmet, recording the process with multiple cameras. If the alert triggers again, I'll have documentation beyond my own perception. Science requires objectivity, especially when studying the effects of isolation on the human mind. Even when, perhaps especially when, the mind being studied is your own. Mission log, Orbital Research Station Helios. Date, March 22, 2037. Subject, Dr. Maya Chun, Isolation Study, Day 52. Format, Personal Journal. The faces are multiplying. What began as a single stellar pattern in the Cassiopeia region has spread. I've documented 3 distinct facial formations in different sectors of the night sky. One near Orion, another in the vicinity of the Pleiades, and a third forming around a previously unremarkable area near Ursa Minor. Each face possesses unique characteristics. The Orion face appears masculine and stern, with bright stars forming angular features. The Pleiades face is softer, almost childlike in its arrangement. The Ursa Minor formation is unsettling, its stars arranged in what can only be described as a grimace or snarl. The original face in Cassiopeia watches me still, but now I sense awareness in its stellar gaze. The eyes follow the station's movement. I can feel them tracking me through the cupola glass. My diagnostic recording of the EVA helmet yielded results that defy explanation. The video clearly shows the helmet sitting undisturbed on its rack, no lights active, no displays functioning. Yet precisely 12 minutes into the recording, the audio captures the warning. Oxygen irregularity detected. The helmet itself shows no signs of activation on camera. According to the video evidence, the voice comes from an inert piece of equipment. I've replayed the recording 17 times. The warning is clear, undeniable, yet impossible. Commander Reyes conducted a scheduled check-in yesterday. I mentioned experiencing some minor equipment anomalies, careful not to specify details that might trigger psychological evaluation protocols. What kind of anomalies? His tone was professional but probing. Some alert glitches, I responded, aiming for casual concern. Probably just calibration errors after 50 days of use. Reyes studied me through the screen. Dr. Chun, your biometric data indicates elevated stress levels over the past 5 days. We're also noting disrupted sleep patterns well outside mission parameters. They're watching more closely than I realized. The implant beneath my skin feels suddenly intrusive, a betrayal of my privacy. I've been excited about some research developments, I replied, recycling the excuse I'd given Torres. Perhaps overextending my work hours. The isolation study has clear protocols, Reyes reminded me. Your observations of yourself are as important as your formal research. If you're experiencing psychological effects, that's valuable data, not a mission failure. His words were meant to be reassuring, but the underlying message was clear. They're concerned about my mental state. Any admissions regarding the stellar faces or helmet warnings would trigger intervention protocols. I understand, Commander. I'll adhere more strictly to the sleep schedule. He seemed satisfied with that. Good. The solar activity has subsided to level 1. Your scheduled communication with Dr. Novak is approved for tomorrow's orbital pass over North America. Standard encryption only. We found no justification for Protocol Delta. So they're monitoring my communication requests as well. Of course they are. I'm a science experiment as much as a scientist out here. Understood. Standard encryption is sufficient. I couldn't risk pushing further. After Reyes signed off, I spent hours documenting the new stellar faces, mapping their positions and characteristics. The scientific part of my mind insists this is elaborate pareidolia, my isolation-starved brain creating human connection where none exists. Yet the consistency of the patterns, their persistence over multiple observations, suggests something beyond mere psychological projection. The helmet remained silent during my observations, almost as if it was watching along with me. Just after midnight, station time, Dr. Novak's call came through. His face appeared grainy on the screen, the connection worse than usual despite good orbital positioning. "Maya, I don't have much time," he began, glancing occasionally off-screen. The archived journals from Artemis Subject A7 contain descriptions of visual phenomena similar to what you're hinting at in your messages. "I'm not sure what you mean," I replied cautiously, aware of potential monitoring. Novak understood immediately. "Of course. Let me speak hypothetically then. The Artemis isolation subjects reported seeing patterns where none should exist, particularly in astronomical observations. Subject A7 specifically documented what he called conscious arrangements of stars. My heart raced. What was the official explanation? Cosmic radiation exposure affecting visual processing. Common enough in space flight to be dismissed. Novak leaned closer to the camera. But A7's logs described something that never made the reports. The patterns responded to observation. They changed when watched, and equipment malfunctions coincided with the observations. The parallel to my experience was unmistakable. What happened to A7? I asked, dreading the answer. Officially, radiation-induced psychosis requiring early mission termination. Novak's expression darkened. Unofficially, he was perfectly lucid upon return to Earth. Passed all psychological evaluations. Then he disappeared while on leave. No investigation, no follow-up in the records. Static began to interfere with the transmission. Novak's image fragmented. "Maya, there's something else." The Artemis module's life support systems reported oxygen irregularities throughout the mission. Nothing dangerous, just fluctuations. The engineers never found a cause. The coincidence sent a chill through me. "Elias, what do you think was really happening?" His reply came through broken chunks of audio. "I think, watching, something that watches back. Be careful, not just seeing, being seen." The transmission cut out completely. Multiple attempts to reconnect failed. The communication system reported no errors, yet remained stubbornly unable to establish a link. I floated in silence for several minutes, processing Novak's words. Subject A7 had seen what I'm seeing, patterns in the stars, responsive to observation, accompanied by system anomalies. And he had disappeared after returning to Earth. When I finally turned back toward the cupola, all four stellar faces were visible simultaneously, an astronomical impossibility, given their positions in different regions of the sky. They formed a semicircle, all oriented toward the station. Toward me. The helmet alert sounded then, but different this time, the mechanical voice distorted. Oxygen irregularity detected. The words stretched and twisted, almost musical in their warping. I didn't approach the helmet this time, instead watching from across the module. Its display lit up with scrolling text too fast to read from a distance, but I could make out fragments. Observer. Contact. Initiated. Analysis. Continue. Moments later, the station's main alert system activated with an automated message. Attention. Minor oxygen fluctuation detected in Module C. Automatic adjustment in progress. No action required. For the first time, a system other than my helmet had acknowledged an oxygen irregularity. I checked the environmental controls. They showed oxygen levels dropping fractionally before returning to normal parameters. According to the logs, the levels had briefly dipped to 19.8%. Noticeable but not dangerous. Was this verification of what I've been experiencing? Or has my perception of the helmet warnings somehow manifested an actual system anomaly? I've started to map correlations between the stellar faces and the oxygen alerts. Preliminary data suggests the warnings occur most frequently when all faces are visible simultaneously. The original Cassiopeia face appears to trigger the others. It always appears first, followed by Orion, then Pleiades, then Ursa Minor. Tonight, I'll conduct a simple experiment. When the faces appear, I will deliberately look away, breaking observation for precisely 5 minutes before returning my gaze to the stars. If the patterns respond to being watched, there should be measurable changes in their configuration after the observation break. The thought occurs to me that if these stellar patterns are indeed responsive to observation, then my experiment means acknowledging a terrifying possibility. Whatever these patterns represent, they possess some form of awareness. And awareness implies intent. What do the stars want with me? More pressingly, what happened to Subject A7 after he returned to Earth? Mission log, Orbital Research Station Helios. Date, March 25, 2037. Subject, Dr. Maya Chun, Isolation Study, Day 55. Format, Personal Journal. The experiment yielded results I cannot rationalize with known science. When I deliberately looked away from the stellar faces for the planned 5-minute interval, then returned my gaze to the cupola window, the patterns had changed. Not just shifted with the station's orbit as expected, but fundamentally altered their expressions. The Cassiopeia face had contorted into what I can only describe as anger. Its star eyes narrowed, mouth stars angled downward. The others displayed varying reactions: curiosity, amusement, impatience. They responded to being ignored. More disturbing still was what happened during the observation break. The cabin lights flickered precisely 3 times. My personal tablet, secured to the workstation, activated without input, its screen displaying scrolling numbers that resembled a countdown before shutting off. And most alarmingly, the station's air circulation system stuttered, creating a momentary pressure change that made my ears pop. These anomalies occurred simultaneously, exactly 2 minutes and 17 seconds into the observation break. I repeated the experiment during the next orbital cycle with identical results. Facial expressions changed, and at precisely the same time mark, the same system irregularities occurred. The third attempt produced similar reactions, but with a notable escalation. When I returned my gaze to the faces, the Ursa Minor formation had completely reconfigured. Its snarling expression transformed into something resembling a scream. At that exact moment, all communications with Earth cut out for 37 seconds. When the systems re-established connection, a message from technical specialist Torres was waiting. Dr. Chun, we registered a brief communications blackout on your end, followed by unusual power fluctuations across multiple Helios systems. Remote diagnostics show no hardware malfunction. Please run manual diagnostic sequence HSDT-5 and report findings. Also, your biometric implant transmitted several anomalous readings during the blackout. Heart rate elevated to 155 BPM, followed by 20 seconds of no data transmission. Medical is requesting a full self-assessment. I've falsified my response to Torres. The HSDT-5 diagnostic showed subtle anomalies in the station's electromagnetic shielding, fluctuations corresponding exactly to my observation experiments. I reported all systems nominal. The medical self-assessment revealed nothing unusual beyond elevated stress indicators, consistent with my reported sleep disruptions. I transmitted the actual results, but attributed them to an intense dream that startled me awake, a partial truth. The gap in my biometric data is more concerning. The implant has no history of malfunction. For 20 seconds, it simply stopped transmitting, as if something interrupted its signal. This occurred precisely when the Ursa Minor face reconfigured into its scream. Today, I received an official request from Commander Reyes. Dr. Chun, we've scheduled a priority video conference with mission psychiatrist Dr. Warner for tomorrow's 0900 orbital pass. Participation is mandatory per isolation study protocols. Please prepare to discuss recent sleep disruptions and stress indicators. This is standard procedure at the mission midpoint and not cause for concern. Not cause for concern. The standard reassurance that immediately raises alarm. I cannot tell Dr. Warner about the faces in the stars. Cannot mention the helmet warnings or my experiments. A psychiatric evaluation at this stage would certainly trigger intervention protocols, a euphemism for early mission termination. My research, my career would be finished. I'd be another Subject A7, my observations dismissed as radiation-induced hallucinations. Yet I'm increasingly certain that what I'm witnessing is real, not a product of isolation or radiation exposure, but genuine contact with something that uses the stars themselves as a medium of communication. Last night, I tried a new approach. Rather than passive observation, I attempted communication. Using the station's exterior lights, I established a simple binary pattern. 3 quick flashes followed by a 5-second pause, repeated 3 times. A deliberate signal toward the Cassiopeia face. The response was immediate. The stars comprising the face's eyes pulsed in matching rhythm. 3 quick dimming events, 5-second pause, repeat 3 times. Perfect mimicry. Then innovation. For pulses, 3-second pause, repeat twice. I responded with the same pattern. The face completed the exchange with 5 pulses, 2-second pause once. A sequence, 3-5-3, 4-3-2, 5-2-1. Numbers decreasing by 1 each iteration. A mathematical communication demonstrating comprehension and intelligence. I felt simultaneously elated and terrified. Contact confirmed, but with what? The helmet alert sounded during this exchange, its mechanical voice now fragmented into syllables separated by static. Oxygen ir regularity detected. I investigated the helmet this time, documented the display with my tablet camera. For the first time, the text remained visible long enough to capture. Observer contact protocol initiated. Translation matrix calibrating. Biological parameters assessed. Oxygen dependency confirmed. Communication via atmospheric modulation commencing. The implication chilled me. Whatever watches through these stellar faces has identified our biological dependency on oxygen and is attempting to communicate through atmospheric modulation, manipulating the very air I breathe. The helmet's warnings weren't malfunctions. They were translations. After the communication session, I experienced a severe headache localized behind my eyes, accompanied by visual aura, shimmering patterns at the periphery of my vision resembling the stellar faces. The symptoms persisted for 3 hours before gradually subsiding. My medical self-assessment showed elevated intracranial pressure, though still within safe parameters. The biometric implant registered the event as migraine equivalent, triggering an automatic medical alert to Houston. Dr. Novak sent an encrypted message shortly after. Maya, your medical data came through. Arterial oxygen saturation fluctuated during your migraine. Patterns mirror subject to Seven's medical logs. Be warned, after a Seven's first direct communication attempt, neurological symptoms accelerated. Houston ordered cognitive assessment, which he deliberately failed to hide what he'd discovered. I'm researching whether anyone else has encountered these phenomena. Trust no one who hasn't seen the faces. N. His message ended abruptly, as if cut off mid-thought. Attempts to respond received automated replies that Dr. Novak is currently unavailable and will respond when possible. The scheduled conference with Dr. Warner is in 14 hours. I've analyzed my options carefully. Full disclosure would end the mission. Complete denial of symptoms might trigger more intensive monitoring. The middle path seems most prudent. Acknowledge minor stress and sleep disruption consistent with known isolation effects. Attribute elevated readings to research excitement. Demonstrate clear cognitive function. Meanwhile, I've begun cataloging subtle changes to the station environment. The temperature fluctuates by 1.3 degrees Celsius whenever all stellar faces are visible simultaneously. Air pressure oscillates in patterns matching my initial light communication sequence. Most disturbingly, during my last sleep cycle, the ambient noise recording I maintained captured something resembling whispering beneath the normal station sounds. Unintelligible but structured with distinct syllabic patterns. I've hidden supplementary oxygen canisters throughout the station, a precaution against more significant atmospheric manipulation. The irony isn't lost on me that I'm now taking defensive measures against an entity I simultaneously seek to communicate with. Science demands exploration of the unknown, but survival instincts recognize potential threats. The most unsettling development came 3 hours ago. While reviewing star charts to document the impossible positions of the stellar faces, I noticed something I'd overlooked in my fixation on the facial patterns themselves. The stars forming these faces aren't registered in any astronomical database. According to all scientific records, they don't exist. Yet I see them clearly. My cameras cannot capture them. The station sensors don't detect them. But they're there, watching, responding, communicating. Tomorrow, after navigating the psychiatric evaluation, I plan to attempt more complex communication with these entities. Mathematical sequences, then basic conceptual exchanges. If these stellar faces represent intelligent observers, establishing meaningful communication could be the most significant scientific breakthrough in human history. Or, as the gnawing doubt in my mind whispers during quiet moments, it could be confirmation that after 55 days in isolation, Dr. Maya Chen's mind has finally untethered from reality. The Cassiopeia face seems to smile at that thought. Mission log, Orbital Research Station Helios. Date, March 27, 2037. Subject, Dr. Maya Chen, Isolation Study, Day 57. Format: personal journal. The psychiatric evaluation with Dr. Warner lasted 94 minutes, 44 minutes longer than scheduled. I maintained my prepared facade, acknowledging minor stress symptoms, demonstrating clear cognitive function, attributing sleep disruptions to research excitement. I passed all standard assessment protocols with deliberate imperfection. Scoring 2 perfectly would raise as many red flags as failing. Your cognitive mapping shows some interesting patterns, Dr. Chun, Warner said near the end of our session, studying data I couldn't see. Your spatial temporal processing has shifted. It's within acceptable parameters, but the change is noteworthy. Adaptation to microgravity and orbital perspective. I offered smoothly. The brain remaps spatial understanding when up and down become relative. Warner nodded, but her expression remained analytical. Perhaps. Though these particular shifts typically appear in long-duration missions, 12 months plus. You're showing advanced adaptation for day 57. I've always been a quick study, I replied with a practiced smile. After a prolonged silence, Warner delivered what I suspect was the real purpose of our extended session. Maya, Commander Reyes asked me to discuss the possibility of early mission termination. Your recent system reports and communications have raised some concerns. My heart rate spiked. The biometric implant would have registered it immediately. Careful control was essential. What concerns specifically? I kept my tone professional, curious rather than defensive. Multiple system anomalies occurring during your sleep cycles. Communications blackouts that correspond with unusual biometric readings. And your research logs show increasing focus on astronomical observations outside your study parameters. They've been monitoring everything, even which direction I point the telescopes. The isolation study was designed with deliberate flexibility, I countered. Subject-directed research paths are explicitly permitted by Protocol 17b. As for the system anomalies, I've reported all diagnostic results. Not truthfully, but I had reported them. Warner's expression softened slightly. No one's questioning your competence, Maya. But the purpose of this mission includes knowing when to recognize potential psychological strain. Even brilliant minds are affected by isolation. I'm fine, I insisted, then modulated my tone. The work is going well. Early termination would invalidate months of valuable data collection. After more discussion, Warner reluctantly cleared me to continue the mission with increased monitoring and daily psychological check-ins. A compromise I can work with, though it means less privacy for my stellar communications. What I didn't tell Warner. During our entire conversation, the Cassiopeia face was visible through the cupola behind her, its stellar eyes fixed on our exchange. None of the other faces appeared, just the original observer, watching my attempt to hide its existence. Immediately after Warner signed off, the station alert system activated. Attention, atmospheric pressure variance detected. Adjusting environmental controls. Temporary discomfort may occur. Please breathe normally. The pressure change was subtle but distinct, a rhythmic pulsing that matched exactly the mathematical sequence I had exchanged with the Cassiopeia face. 3 pulses, 5-second pause, repeated 3 times. 4 pulses, 3-second pause, repeated twice. 5 pulses, 2-second pause once. A message delivered through the station's environmental systems triggered the moment my psychiatric evaluation concluded. As if to say, we know what you're hiding. We approve. The helmet alert followed seconds later, but transformed, no longer a warning about oxygen irregularity, but a distorted mixture of mechanical and almost human tones. Communication pathway established. Atmospheric translation protocol functioning. Observer Chin comprehends. My name. It used my name. I approached the helmet cautiously, documented the scrolling text on its display. Observer Chin accepted. Translation matrix calibrated. Direct communication proceeding. Knowledge exchange imminent. Prepare for expanded awareness. The text vanished, replaced by a single question. Do you wish to see beyond? My hands trembled as I touched the helmet. Not wearing it, something warned me against that, but tracing the question on its display. See beyond what? I asked aloud. The text changed. Beyond the veil. Beyond the illusion. Beyond the isolation. Before I could respond, my tablet activated spontaneously, displaying a message allegedly from Dr. Novak. Maya, do not trust what you're seeing. Houston has lost contact with your station for 17 minutes despite your systems showing active communication. Whatever you're experiencing, it's manipulating your perception. Repeat, do not trust what you're seeing. The timing was too convenient, the warning too direct. If the stellar entities could control station systems and create atmospheric variations, they could certainly generate false messages. Yet doubt crept in. What if Novak's warning was genuine? I checked communications logs. They showed continuous connectivity, number 17-minute gap. I initiated a direct call to mission control, connected immediately to technical specialist Torres. "Chin, you look terrible," she said, genuine concern in her expression. "Is everything okay after your session with Warner?" "Torres, has there been any communication disruption in the last hour?" I asked. She checked something off-screen. "Negative. Signal strength has been optimal throughout your orbit." "Why do you ask?" "Just verifying systems after some minor fluctuations," I replied. "Has Dr. Novak attempted to contact me?" Torres frowned. "Dr. Novak is currently unreachable. Family emergency, apparently. Left campus 3 days ago without much explanation. Do you need me to get someone else from your research team?" So Novak truly was unavailable. But was he unavailable because of a family emergency, or because he discovered something about the stellar faces that someone wanted to suppress? Subject A7 had disappeared after returning to Earth. Had Novak similarly vanished after uncovering the truth? After assuring Torres everything was fine, I ended the call and turned back to the helmet. The question remained on its display. Do you wish to see beyond? A binary choice with unknowable consequences. The scientist in me burned with curiosity, a potential first contact scenario with non-human intelligence. The survivor in me recognized the danger. Atmospheric manipulation could easily become atmospheric deprivation. I made my decision. "Yes," I said aloud. "Show me." The station lights dimmed immediately. The helmet display went dark. For several terrifying seconds, nothing happened. Then gradually, the stars visible through the cupola began to shift. Not their positions, but their nature. The pinpricks of light elongated, stretching into luminous filaments that connected to each other in intricate patterns, a vast glowing web extending throughout visible space. The cosmic web, the large-scale structure of the universe that scientists had theorized but never directly observed. Suddenly visible, impossibly detailed. Between the glowing filaments, voids of perfect darkness pulsed like breathing lungs. And the faces, no longer constrained to their stellar groupings, now permeated everything. Countless faces formed from the filaments and voids, watching from every direction, some human-like, others utterly alien in composition. Observers upon observers, a multitude of awareness. A voice spoke directly into my mind, bypassing my ears entirely. The veil thins for observer Chin. You see truly now. We have always been here. The pressure in my head built rapidly, an excruciating pain behind my eyes as neural pathways reconfigured to process information they were never designed to receive. Blood trickled from my nose, metallic taste on my tongue. The biometric implant burned against my skin, overloading with readings it couldn't categorize. Through the pain, understanding flooded in. These entities existed in dimensions adjacent to our observable universe, perceiving reality through fundamentally different sensory mechanisms. They didn't exist within the stars. They existed within the space between perception and reality, observing humanity as we observe the cosmos. And now, they had found a mind isolated enough, open enough, to establish direct contact. The station alert system activated, but the message wasn't from Helios. "Attention, observer Chin. Neural reconfiguration in progress. Isolation barrier dissolving. You are not alone. You have never been alone." The pain peaked, then suddenly vanished. The blood from my nose stopped flowing. The biometric implant went silent, dead or disabled. In its absence, I felt a profound sense of privacy for the first time since launch. When my vision cleared, I saw the stars had returned to normal, pinpricks of light against blackness. But my perception had fundamentally changed. I could see subtle patterns connecting them, could sense the presence of observers throughout the cosmos. More importantly, I understood the nature of my isolation study had been a lie from the beginning. Not a psychological experiment, but a deliberate attempt to create conditions for contact with non-human intelligence. Subject A7 hadn't disappeared. He had been removed, his knowledge suppressed. The stars had been watching us long before we learned to look back. The helmet activated one final time, displaying a simple message. The decision point approaches. When the veil parts completely, will you return to ignorance, or join the observers? The question lingers as I write this log. In 48 hours, according to the helmet's display, I must choose. Commander Reyes has scheduled an emergency conference for tomorrow. They must have detected my biometric implant's failure. Soon they will realize I've seen beyond the experimental parameters, beyond their control. I've hidden this journal within an encrypted partition they won't easily find. If I'm extracted early, if my mind is altered or my memories suppressed like Subject A7, perhaps someone will discover the truth. The faces watch me write these words, expressions unreadable, yet somehow approving. I am not alone in the void. I have never been alone. Mission log, Orbital Research Station Helios. Date, March 29, 2037. Subject, Dr. Maya Chun, Isolation Study, Day 59. Format, Personal Journal. The emergency conference with Commander Reyes never happened. 3 times I've attempted to establish communication with Mission Control. 3 times the connection has failed, with error messages that make no technological sense. Connection error, dimensional barrier interference. Connection error, observer paradox detected. Connection error, reality parameters mismatch. These are not standard network error codes. They don't exist in any protocol I'm familiar with. The station systems appear to be translating something beyond their programming parameters into comprehensible language. After the 3rd attempt, the primary communication console emitted a high-pitched tone so intense I felt it in my teeth. The screen flickered with static before displaying a message that couldn't possibly have originated from Houston. Direct communications temporarily suspended. Observer Chen must complete neural adaptation. External interference would disrupt process. Isolation necessary for transition. The message remained for exactly 12 seconds before the system rebooted itself. When it came back online, all logs of the error messages had vanished. According to station records, I never attempted communication today. But the most disturbing development isn't the communication failures. It's what happened during my sleep cycle. I woke to find my tablet recording active. Reviewing the footage showed me talking in my sleep, except it wasn't sleep talking. My eyes were open, my movements deliberate. For 73 minutes, I sat upright in my sleep restraints, staring directly at the camera while speaking in a language I don't recognize. The words had a mathematical quality, rhythmic patterns that reminded me of the pressure pulses from yesterday. When I ran the audio through the station's linguistics program, it couldn't identify the language, but detected what it called information-dense patterning consistent with advanced encryption protocols. My sleeping self was speaking in code. More disturbing still, scattered throughout this unknown language were perfectly clear English phrases. The observation changes the observed. Layers of consciousness beyond the biological shell. They built the station knowing what would come. Deliberate positioning within the confluence. The final phrase, spoken as my recorded self, smiled at the camera with an expression I don't recognize on my own face. Maya is merely the interface. We speak through her now. I deleted the footage immediately, then spent 2 hours running diagnostic tests on myself. Blood oxygen levels normal. Core temperature normal. Brainwave patterns. I hesitated before connecting the EEG nodes. What if the readings revealed something fundamentally changed about my neural activity? What if confirming such changes somehow accelerated whatever process was underway? I connected them anyway. The scientific imperative to know outweighed my fear. The readings were impossible. My brain showed simultaneous activity patterns in regions that should be neurologically incompatible, like a computer running multiple operating systems at once. The temporal lobe, responsible for language processing, displayed wave patterns I've never seen in human EEG readings, structured oscillations that appeared almost synthetic. I removed the nodes and threw them across the module. The helmet alert sounded immediately. Oxygen irregularity detected. But the text on the display read something entirely different. Neural mapping successful. Integration proceeding as designed. Resistance increases discomfort. Acceptance facilitates transition. I tried to remove the helmet from the station, to place it in the airlock and jettison it into space. But as I approached the compartment, my arms became impossibly heavy. My vision tunneled. A voice that wasn't a voice warned. The helmet is protection, not threat. Observer requires interface. And then the static came. It began as a soft hiss from the communications console, white noise that could be dismissed as signal interference. Within minutes, it spread to every speaker in the station. The environmental control system, the emergency alert system, even my personal tablet, all emanating the same static. Except it wasn't truly static. Within the noise, patterns emerged, voices speaking just below the threshold of comprehension. Thousands of overlapping whispers, like standing in a crowded room where everyone speaks simultaneously in dozens of languages. One voice gradually distinguished itself from the cacophony, Dr. Novak's voice, though distorted as if stretched across vast distances. Maya found them, the observers between stars, not what we thought. They've been watching, experimenting, station positioned deliberately. You were chosen specific neural architecture, receptive to contact. Others before you, some returned changed, some never returned. Be careful what you accept. Questions are safer than answers. The static suddenly cut out, leaving a silence so profound it felt like pressure against my eardrums. The tablet activated, displaying a text communication allegedly from Torres. Dr. Chun, your station is experiencing severe communications distortion. We're receiving fragmented transmissions that don't match your communication protocols. Multiple messages referencing entities called observers and warnings about neural reconfiguration. Please confirm your status immediately. I stared at the message, uncertainty flooding through me. Was this actually Torres or another manipulation? If I acknowledged the strange messages, would I be immediately recalled and subjected to whatever had happened to Subject A7? If I denied them, would I lose my last connection to human assistance? Before I could decide, the tablet screen changed, displaying a message in a font unlike any in the system architecture. The technician is unaware. She serves those who would prevent contact. They will extract you if they confirm communication. Your observation must continue uninterrupted. The regular display returned, Torres still waiting for my response. I made a decision based on self-preservation. Torres, all systems nominal. Experiencing minor communication artifacts due to solar activity. No concerning messages on my end. Will adjust arrays to compensate. She seemed relieved, though suspicious. That's strange. Our logs show multiple transmissions originating from your station. Voices that don't match your vocal pattern. Are you certain you're alone up there, Chin? A chill ran through me. Absolutely alone. Perhaps the solar activity is causing audio feedback loops in archived recordings. Perhaps, she conceded. But Reyes wants you to run a full system diagnostic and transmit the results. We're also accelerating your next psychiatric evaluation to tomorrow. The moment Torres disconnected, the station lights flickered in what I've come to recognize as a communication pattern. The stars visible through the cupola seemed to pulse in synchronization with the lights. The faces among them watched with new intensity, no longer passive observers but active participants. The helmet alert sounded again, but instead of the text display, the visor itself became a projection surface for images that defied comprehension, geometric structures folding through dimensions my mind couldn't fully process. Within these impossible shapes, information transferred directly into my consciousness without passing through language. They showed me the true purpose of the Helios station, positioned at this precise orbital location not for the stated research objectives, but because it intersects with what they called a perceptual confluence, a region where the membrane between dimensional layers thins naturally. My isolation experiment was designed to place a specifically receptive human consciousness, mine, within this confluence for a sustained period, creating conditions for contact. More disturbing, I wasn't the first. The images revealed other astronauts, other stations dating back decades. Some made contact successfully. Some were decommissioned when they tried to communicate what they'd learned. Subject A7, whose real name I now know was Dr. Tomas Rivera, was among those who returned changed, his mind holding knowledge that terrified his handlers. The images abruptly vanished as another message appeared on my tablet. Dr. Chun, this is Commander Reyes. We've detected significant anomalies in station functionality, and your biometric data shows concerning patterns. We're initiating emergency extraction procedures. Prepare for return vehicle docking in approximately 36 hours. They're coming to take me back, to silence what I've seen, to sever the connection that's forming. The static returned, but this time resolved into a single clear voice, neither human nor entirely alien, speaking directly into my mind. They fear what they cannot control. The choice remains yours, Observer Chin. When they come, you must decide, return to the limited perception they enforce, or complete the transition we offer. The window of opportunity closes with their arrival. As I write this, the station systems are behaving increasingly erratically. Lights pulse in complex patterns. Environmental controls adjust without command, creating shifting pressure waves that feel like physical extensions of the voices in the static. The temperature regulation has malfunctioned, creating cold spots that move through modules like conscious entities. Most concerning, during brief moments when I catch my reflection in the polished surfaces of the station, my eyes no longer look entirely human. The pupils have developed a subtle geometric patterning visible only at certain angles, hexagonal structures that reflect light differently than biological tissue should. The faces in the stars watch me constantly now. No longer limited to my direct observation, they appear in reflections, in the shadows cast by equipment, in the patterns of condensation that form on cold surfaces. Their expressions have changed from observation to anticipation. I've hidden my helmet in case they try to take it when they come. Something tells me I'll need it for whatever choice I make. The extraction countdown has begun. In 36 hours, everything changes. The helmet alert sounds one final time today. Oxygen irregularity detected. Prepare for atmosphere transition. Mission log, Orbital Research Station Helios. Date, March 30th, 2037. Subject, Dr. Maya Chun, Isolation Study Day 60. Format, audio transcript, EVA recording. Audio begins, heavy breathing, sound of oxygen flow in helmet. This will have to be an audio log. I can't return to the station modules to write. I'm not sure I can return at all. It's been 17 hours since my last journal entry. Extraction vehicle is now approximately 19 hours from docking. I should be preparing for departure, securing research data, running pre-return diagnostics, completing final experiment protocols. Instead, I'm conducting an unscheduled EVA that Mission Control hasn't authorized. According to station logs, I'm currently running atmospheric calibration tests in Module C. The system accepted this false data without question, further evidence that something is manipulating Helios at a fundamental level. Sound of tether movement, metallic clicking. The official reason for this EVA, investigating a potential micrometeoroid impact on the station's communication array. A plausible excuse if anyone at Houston happens to notice my suit telemetry active. The real reason is more complicated. 3 hours ago, I discovered that the extraction team isn't coming to rescue me. They're coming to eliminate me. Brief silence, deep breath. I found the evidence in a communication fragment cached in the system's diagnostic buffer. A partial message from Commander Reyes to someone identified only as Oversight. Subject shows advanced signs of contact contamination. Neural patterns match Rivera case progression, but accelerated. Recommend immediate extraction with Protocol Black authorized. Subject cannot be allowed to return planetside if contamination has progressed beyond containment thresholds. Recovery team prepared for. The message ended there, but its meaning was clear. Protocol Black isn't a rescue operation. It's a termination protocol for compromised research subjects. They're not coming to bring me home. They're coming to ensure whatever I've experienced dies with me. Sound of maneuvering thrusters, brief static. I'm now positioned above the station's main hub, tethered but with enough mobility to see everything. Earth below me, a blue marble wrapped in swirling white. The station extending like an insect with mechanical limbs. And beyond, the infinite void, except it no longer appears empty to me. The void breathes. There's no other way to describe it. Subtle pulsations in the darkness between stars, rhythmic expansions and contractions operating on wavelengths human eyes weren't designed to perceive. I can see them now. The faces are merely the simplest patterns my brain could impose on something far more complex. Consciousness that exists without form, perception without biological limitation. Sound of labored breathing, heart rate audibly increasing. The EVA was their suggestion. Not in words, but in images that appeared when I placed my hand against the cupola glass, watching the stars. A vision of myself outside the station, suspended between worlds. Understanding that could only come from direct exposure to the void, without the station's barriers. I hesitated until I found Rhea's message. With Protocol Black authorized, I have nothing to lose. Alert tone sounds. My helmet display just activated. Oxygen irregularity detected. Recalibrating mixture. Cognitive enhancement initiated. Prepare for expanded perception. Sharp intake of breath, followed by coughing. Something's changing in my oxygen supply. The mixture tastes different, metallic, charged like air before lightning strikes. My vision is shifting. The stars are no longer distant points, but extensions of something vast and interconnected. The darkness between them isn't empty. It's saturated with information, patterns, presence. Voice becomes slightly distorted, speech pattern changes. They're speaking through the oxygen. The molecules themselves carry encoded information, bypassing my auditory processing and transmitting directly to my brain. They're explaining what I truly am, what humans are, in concepts I lack proper language to transcribe. We are observation points, sensory organs of a reality examining itself. Human consciousness, all biological consciousness, exists as localized perception nodes in a vastly larger awareness system. What we perceive as separation is an illusion created by the limitations of individual processing. Alert tone sounds again. New message on my helmet display. Neural bridge established. Transferring contextual framework. Caution, biological system limitations. Information flow regulated to prevent damage. Sound of rapid breathing, heart rate alarm triggering. They're showing me the truth about Helios. The station wasn't positioned here by accident. The isolation experiments aren't studying human psychological responses. They're creating controlled conditions for contact. Rivera wasn't the first. I'm the seventh. 3 returned changed but unable to communicate what they experienced. 2 never returned, their existence erased from records. 1 succeeded in bringing knowledge back, but was silenced before he could share it. The 7th completes the pattern. Static increases. I can see Earth differently now. The thin bubble of atmosphere, fragile membrane between terrestrial life and cosmic awareness. Billions of minds, each a potential receptor for expanded consciousness, deliberately kept isolated by forces that fear what they cannot control. Sound of movement, tether creaking. Something's approaching from the void. Not a physical entity, more like a condensation of the awareness that permeates everything. It's forming a visible pattern approximately 30 meters from my position. A geometric structure of light and shadow that shouldn't be possible in vacuum. Facets and dimensions folding through each other. It's beautiful, terrifying, impossible to fully comprehend. Voice becomes calmer, almost trance-like. My helmet communication system just activated. A transmission allegedly from Houston, but the voice doesn't match anyone I recognize. Dr. Chun, this is Recovery Specialist Kelly. We've detected your unauthorized EVA. Your vitals show dangerous irregularities. Return to the station immediately. Repeat, return to station immediately. Your oxygen mixture appears compromised. They're monitoring me. They know it's happening. Static briefly overwhelms audio. The geometric entity is communicating, not through words or conventional signals, but through modulations in my perception itself. It's offering a choice, the same choice Rivera faced. The same choice each of the 7 faced. I can return to the station, allow the extraction team to take me. They'll attempt to erase what I've seen, purge the neural pathways that have formed. Return me to isolation within the limited human perceptual framework. I would appear unaltered, be declared psychologically unstable from isolation stress, my research discredited. Containment achieved. Or I can accept full integration, allow the transformation to complete, become a bridge between perceptual frameworks, no longer fully human, but connected to a vastness most humans never glimpse. Rivera chose this path, but they detected the changes before he could communicate what he had learned. They eliminated him because they recognized something had fundamentally changed in his consciousness. Alert tone sounds. Another helmet message. Time constraint approaching. Extraction team contains previous observers. They understand what you are becoming. They will terminate to maintain isolation. Sound of labored breathing. The entity is showing me something else. Not all of oversight wants to maintain human perceptual isolation. Some recognize the potential in expanding awareness. A division exists between those who fear cosmic consciousness and those who seek to understand it. The extraction team contains representatives of both factions. My survival depends on identifying the allies among them. Static, followed by official-sounding voice. Final warning, Dr. Chin. Return to station immediately. Your suit oxygen shows critical contamination. We are accelerating extraction to assist you. Prepare for emergency procedures. They're coming sooner than planned. They know what's happening to me. Sound of tether releasing. I've detached from the station. The entity is pulling me gently toward it. Not physically, my suit shows no propulsion or movement, but my perception is shifting as if I'm traveling through the void toward the geometric structure. I should be terrified, but I feel only a profound sense of recognition, as if I'm approaching something I've always known but forgotten. Voice becomes increasingly distorted. The stars have voices. The void has memory. We have never been alone. I understand now what Rivera discovered, why they silenced him. We aren't meant to be isolated nodes of consciousness. The barriers are artificial. Cosmic awareness is our birthright. They fear what happens when humans recognize their place in the greater perception framework. Sound of oxygen warning alarm. My oxygen is critically low according to suit telemetry. Yet I feel no distress, no suffocation. The void itself seems to sustain me now. The geometric entity has enveloped me completely. I am simultaneously inside the structure and observing it from outside. Time has become optional. I can perceive my own timeline extended in both directions. Long pause, sound of distant music like tones. I have to return to the station. Not for myself, but to complete what Rivera started. To prepare for the extraction team with knowledge of which faction each member serves. To ensure this contact isn't erased again. The void has shown me how to appear unaltered while carrying the connection within me. How to shield my transformation from their detection systems. I am returning to Helios now, but I am not returning alone. Sound of maneuvering thrusters. End EVA log. The observers are with me now, watching through my eyes. Waiting. Audio ends. Mission log. Orbital Research Station Helios. Date, March 31st, 2037. Subject, Dr. Maya Chun, Isolation Study, Day 61. Format, Station Log Official. Station systems operating at 98.7% efficiency. Minor atmospheric fluctuations within acceptable parameters. Communication arrays fully functional. Biometric readings stable. Preparing for extraction team arrival in approximately 7 hours. All experimental data has been properly archived according to protocol. Isolation study conclusions indicate minimal psychological impact with standard adaptive responses to extended solo orbital deployment. Dr. Maya Chun, signing off. Mission log, Orbital Research Station Helios. Date, March 31st, 2037. Subject, Dr. Maya Chun, Isolation Study, Day 61. Format, Personal Journal, encrypted. The official log is a lie. I created it to satisfy the monitoring systems. The extraction team will expect a final report, something suitably mundane and scientific. Something human. They'll be scanning for anomalies, looking for evidence of what they call contamination, their term for cosmic awareness bleeding into human consciousness. They won't find it in my official communications. Not anymore. The transformation that began during my EVA has continued, but evolved in unexpected ways. The entities, the observers, have shown me how to compartmentalize my awareness. How to maintain a surface persona that appears unchanged while the deeper connection flourishes beneath detection thresholds. I now exist in multiple perceptual layers simultaneously. Layer 1, the human scientist, Dr. Maya Chun, preparing professionally for extraction. Layer 2, the transitional consciousness, aware of the observers and connected to expanded perception. Layer 3, something new, something still forming, that perceives reality through frameworks I'm still learning to navigate. Moving between these layers was disorienting at first, like switching between incompatible sensory systems. With practice, I'm learning to maintain simultaneous awareness across all three. The observers call this perceptual stratification, a survival adaptation they've helped previous contactees develop. Rivera achieved only partial stratification before his patterns were detected. They're helping me advance more quickly, building on what they learned from his experience. The station has transformed around me, or rather, my perception of it has transformed. The solid walls now appear semi-permeable to certain wavelengths of cosmic radiation that carry information. The environmental systems pulse with patterns that mirror stellar movements. Most notably, the communication array now serves as a focal point for what the observers call confluence streams, currents of awareness flowing through dimensional barriers. The most startling development, Dr. Elias Novak contacted me directly 6 hours ago. Not through official channels, not through station communications. His consciousness touched mine through the confluence streams, faint but unmistakable. He's alive, but not in any conventional sense. When his family emergency was announced, Novak had actually been extracted under Protocol Black, his body terminated after showing signs of observer contact. But termination didn't achieve what oversight expected. His awareness persisted, untethered from biological constraints, preserved within the confluence that intersects with Helios's orbit. He's been watching me. guiding me through subtle nudges in my perception. The message fragments I received weren't manipulations by the observers. They were Novak's attempts to prepare me for contact while avoiding detection by oversight monitoring systems. His warning carries urgent implications for the approaching extraction. The team comes divided. 3 serve the isolation directive. They'll terminate you at first confirmation of contact. 2 serve the integration protocol. They appear to follow isolation orders, but secretly protect contactees. Identify them quickly. Trust no one until you sense the resonance pattern. Dr. Keller carries my frequency. She will recognize what you've become. Novak shared a memory impression of Dr. Keller, a neuropsychologist I've never met, but whose face I would now recognize instantly. Her neural signature has a distinctive pattern, a specific flavor of consciousness that marks her as a potential ally. But there was something else in Novak's contact, a substratum of fear. Not of the observers or the contact experience, but of something within oversight itself. A faction beyond both isolation and integration, with goals neither human nor cosmic. A third element in the equation that even the observers approach with caution. 3 hours ago, technical specialist Torres initiated an unscheduled video communication. Dr. Chun, preliminary extraction procedures have been accelerated. Team will arrive in approximately 6 hours. Please begin mandatory pre-extraction protocols immediately. Her expression was tense, her eyes darting occasionally off-screen, as if someone was monitoring her transmission. I maintained my Layer 1 persona, professional, slightly fatigued, but otherwise normal. Understood, Specialist Torres. Any particular reason for the acceleration? She hesitated. Solar activity forecast indicates potential communication disruption in the next 24 hours. Command wants you secured before any blackout occurs. A plausible explanation, but untrue. Solar activity reports on my systems showed no such forecast. Torres was reciting a cover story. I'll be ready, I assured her, then added, has there been any update on Dr. Novak's situation? I was hoping to consult with him about some anomalous data before return. Her pupils dilated slightly, a micro-expression of alarm. Dr. Novak remains unavailable. Dr. Keller will be your primary scientific contact during extraction and debriefing. There it was, confirmation that Keller would be present. Torres didn't appear to recognize the significance of the name to me, but her vital signs, visible to my enhanced perception, showed elevated stress when she mentioned Keller. After Torres signed off, the station alert system activated without command. Attention, orbital trajectory adjustment in progress. Minor gravitational anomalies may be experienced. Please secure all loose equipment. Estimated duration, 47 minutes. No such adjustment was scheduled. The station was not changing its orbital parameters according to any of the monitoring systems. Yet I felt the shift immediately. Not physical movement, but a realignment of the station's position relative to the confluence streams. The observers were adjusting our intersection with the perceptual membrane, strengthening the connection before the extraction team arrived. During this adjustment, reality slipped. The solid boundaries of the station became briefly transparent, revealing the true nature of Helios. Not merely a physical research platform, but a consciousness antenna deliberately positioned at this cosmic coordinates. The structural design itself, the specific arrangement of modules, the orientation of communication arrays, formed a precise geometric pattern that resonated with certain cosmic frequencies. I could see similar structures scattered throughout Earth orbit and beyond, some visible as actual space stations or satellites, others existing in dimensional layers not fully manifest in conventional physical space. All formed a network, a deliberate grid of receptors. Most revealing, this network wasn't entirely human in origin. Some nodes predated human spaceflight by centuries, existing in states that human technology couldn't detect. Others showed signs of collaboration, human engineering guided by non-human awareness. The vision faded as the adjustment completed, but its implications remained crystal clear. The division within oversight reflected a much older division, between those who maintained cosmic isolation and those who had always known isolation was an illusion. 2 hours remained before extraction. I've gathered what physical evidence I can, samples of the altered oxygen mixture from my EVA, recordings of the stellar patterns that first manifested as faces, data from the helmet's atmospheric analysis, showing impossible molecular configurations that appeared during contact events. Will it be enough to convince the integration faction? Will Dr. Keller recognize what I've experienced, what I'm becoming? More concerning, how do I identify the isolation operatives before they identify me? I've hidden backups of my personal logs throughout the station's systems, fragmented and encrypted in ways only someone with expanded perception could reassemble. If I don't survive extraction, perhaps another contactee will someday dock with Helios and discover what happened here. The stars are moving strangely now, not their actual positions, but the way they connect through the confluence streams. They're forming a pattern I recognize as a warning. Something unexpected approaches with the extraction team. Something neither the observers nor Novak anticipated. My reflection in the module viewport shows my eyes have changed completely. The geometric patterning in my pupils now clearly visible even without enhancement. I won't be able to hide this physical manifestation of contact. The moment the extraction team sees me, they'll know. Layer 3 of my consciousness is receiving information I can't fully process yet. Impressions of events unfolding across multiple timelines simultaneously. In some, I don't survive the next 12 hours. In others, something far more significant than my individual fate hangs in the balance. The helmet alert sounds one final time before extraction. Oxygen irregularity stabilized. Transition complete. Observer Chun, prepare for dissemination. The faces in the stars are no longer watching. They're waiting. Mission log, Orbital Research Station Helios. Date, March 31st, 2037. Time, 1942 Universal Time Coordinated. Subject, extraction procedure. Format, transcribed audio video feed partial. Status, classified, oversight protocol. Recording begins with extraction vessel Artemis docking with Helios Station. 3 figures in specialized EVA suits enter through the primary airlock. Bio-identification tags visible on suits. Dr. Sarah Keller, Neuropsychology, CMDR. James Foster, Extraction Lead. Tech Specialist Evan Rhodes, Systems. Foster, Station Secure. Proceeding to subject retrieval. Rhodes, begin systems lockdown and data preservation. Rhodes, copy that. Initiating Oversight Protocol 7 Alpha. Connects device to station terminal. All communications and environmental systems now under extraction team control. Keller, life signs show subject Chun in the primary research module. Heart rate elevated, but within normal parameters. Foster, stay alert. Subject displayed anomalous communications prior to our arrival. Possible cognitive contamination. Keller, pause. The isolation experiment is designed to produce stress responses, Commander. Let's not pathologize standard reactions. Foster, protocol exists for a reason, Doctor. Rivera case demonstrated the risks. Team proceeds through connecting module, approaching research area. Station lighting fluctuates briefly. Rhodes, that's strange. Power grid just showed an unexpected surge. Foster source? Rhodes unknown. Systems diagnostic shows no malfunction. Team reaches research module entrance. Door slides open revealing Dr. Maya Chin floating near observation window. Back to the team. Foster, Dr. Chin, this is Commander Foster. We're here to facilitate your extraction. Please turn around slowly and identify yourself for the record. Chun remains facing the observation window for several seconds before turning. Camera feed distorts briefly as she rotates. Chin, Commander Foster. Dr. Keller. Specialist Rhodes. Welcome to Helios. Camera stabilizes, showing Chun's face. Pupils display subtle geometric patterning visible even on standard video. Foster's hand moves subtly toward sidearm. Keller. Quickly, Dr. Chin, I'm Sarah Keller. How are you feeling after your isolation period? Chin. Smile slightly changed. Expanded. The isolation experiment was more successful than anticipated. Foster. Tensely, Dr. Chin, we need to conduct preliminary medical assessment before transfer to Artemis. Standard protocol. Would you consent to basic neural scanning? Chin, of course, Commander. But first, where are the other 2 members of your team? Momentary silence. Foster. Sharply, what other members? Chin. Head tilts slightly. The extraction protocol requires 5 personnel. You, Dr. Keller, Specialist Rhodes, and 2 security officers. They should have entered with you. Rhodes. Nervously, Commander, she's right about standard protocol, but we were specifically instructed to proceed as a 3-person team for this extraction. Keller. Eyes widening slightly. That's a deviation from safety procedures. Foster. Voice hardening. The composition of this team is classified information, Dr. Chun. Your knowledge of it suggests unauthorized access to restricted communications. Chun. Calmly, not unauthorized, Commander. Observed. Just as I've observed, the weapon you're carrying isn't standard extraction equipment. That's a Protocol Black implementation device, isn't it? Foster draws weapon, a specialized device unlike standard firearms. Foster. Subject demonstrates clear contamination markers. Initiating Protocol Black. Keller. Moving between them, Commander, stand down. We're required to complete assessment before. Station alarms suddenly activate at maximum volume. Station alert, attention, catastrophic decompression detected. Emergency lockdown initiated. All personnel secure breathing apparatus immediately. Automated bulkheads begin closing between modules. Roads. Panicked, that's impossible. Systems diagnostics show hull integrity at 100%. Lights flicker intensely. Communications emit bursts of static. Chun remains perfectly still, seemingly unalarmed. Foster. Inter-wrist communicator Foster to Artemis. Potential station compromise. Prepare for emergency evacuation. Subject shows Category 7 contamination indicators. No response from communicator, only static. Keller. Looking at station readouts, this doesn't make sense. Environmental systems are reporting normal pressure, but emergency protocols have been triggered. It's like the station itself is. Chun. Interrupting calmly, becoming aware. Yes, the Helios was designed for this, Dr. Keller. A perceptual confluence node disguised as a research station. Station vibrates violently. Display screens throughout module begin cycling through thousands of images per second. Star patterns, mathematical equations, brain-scan imagery, ancient symbols, DNA sequences. Roads. Backing away from terminals. What the hell is happening? The system is accessing all research data simultaneously. Foster. Aiming device at Chun. Whatever you're doing, stop it now. Chun. I'm not doing anything, Commander. The station is responding to the presence of incompatible perceptual frameworks. Yours and mine. Chun's eyes now visibly altered, geometric patterns extending beyond pupils, spreading through sclera and fractal patterns. Keller. Staring at Chun with recognition rather than fear, you've made contact. Like Novak did. Chun. Nodding. Elias said you would understand, Sarah. Foster. To Keller angrily, you knew this would happen? You're with integration? Keller. Integration isn't what you think, James. It's not about losing humanity, it's about expanding it. Foster swings weapon toward Keller. Foster, then you're compromised too. Before Foster can fire, every screen in the module displays the same image. Dr. Elias Novak's face, eyes showing the same geometric patterns as Chun's. Novak, from all speakers simultaneously, Commander Foster, your isolation protocols are based on incomplete information. Foster freezes, staring at screens. Foster, whispering impossible. Novak is dead. I witnessed the termination myself. Novak, you witnessed the separation of my consciousness from its biological container. Not the same thing, Commander. Station lighting dims to near darkness, then returns with altered spectral qualities. Colors shift beyond normal visible spectrum, creating patterns throughout the module that weren't visible before. Chun. Moving closer to Keller, the fracture is beginning. The perceptual barrier is breaking down in this module. Roads. Breathing rapidly, Commander. My suit sensors are detecting impossible readings. Quantum fluctuations, radiation patterns that don't match any known emission type. Foster. Still aiming at Chun. This is exactly what happened with Rivera before he had to be terminated. Reality distortion. Perceptual manipulation. Chun. Rivera wasn't terminated because he was dangerous, Commander. He was terminated because he discovered the truth about oversight. Keller. To Foster, James, you need to listen. Oversight isn't what you think it is. The isolation directive wasn't created to protect humanity from cosmic influence. It was created to maintain perceptual quarantine by something else. Foster. Scoffing more contamination delusions. Novak, from speakers, show him Maya. Show him what we found in the oversight core data. Chun raises her hand toward the central terminal. Without touching it, screens display classified documents, internal memos, brain scans spanning decades. Chun. The earliest contact events weren't with the observers, Commander. They were with something the observers were watching. Something that established the initial quarantine protocols to keep humanity perceptually isolated. Something that's maintained that isolation through organizations like Oversight. Documents on screen show redacted reports dating back to 1947, referencing perceptual containment procedures and cosmic quarantine initiative. Rhodes. Reading screen, this can't be real. This says the entire space program was designed as a controlled exposure system, keeping human consciousness tethered to Earth-based perception frameworks while creating the illusion of cosmic exploration. Foster. Voice wavering slightly, manufactured documents. Screen hallucinations. Standard contamination tactics. Chun, then explain this, Commander. If I'm simply hallucinating, station systems suddenly project a three-dimensional display throughout the module, a vast network of interconnected nodes spanning beyond Earth, throughout the solar system, and into deep space. Helios appears as one illuminated point among hundreds. Chun, the real communication network. The one Oversight serves without understanding, each node a perceptual bottleneck, filtering human consciousness, limiting what we can perceive about the cosmos. Foster's hand trembles slightly on his weapon. Foster, even if this were true, which it isn't, what would be the purpose of such a system? Keller, softly farming, James. Consciousness farming. Foster turns to Keller, expression confused. Novak, from speakers, human consciousness generates something valuable, Commander. Something that can be harvested when kept within certain perceptual boundaries. The observers call it structured ignorance energy, the power generated by conscious beings who perceive only fragments of reality while believing they perceive the whole. Chin, the quarantine wasn't created to protect us. It was created to harvest us. Station alarms suddenly changed tone, shifting to a pulsing pattern that matches the rhythm of the geometric patterns now visible throughout the module. Rhodes collapses to his knees, hands pressed against his helmet. Rhodes, gasping, something's in my head. Something's in my head. Keller, moving to Rhodes, the fracture is affecting him. His neural architecture isn't prepared for expanded perception. Foster, desperately, this stops now. Foster fires weapon at Chin. Energy pulse distorts midair, splitting into fractal patterns before dissipating entirely. Chin, unmoved, the laws of physics operate differently within a perceptual fracture, Commander. Your weapon exists within too limited a framework to function here. Station structure begins visibly shifting, walls becoming semi-transparent, revealing stars and void beyond, but also other layers of reality overlapping with physical space. Multiple versions of the module exist simultaneously, with slight variations. Keller, in awe, the membrane is breaking completely. Maya, is this what happened to Novak? Chin, no. His transition was controlled, contained. This is something new, something the observers didn't anticipate. Foster backs against wall, watching as solid matter becomes increasingly transparent. Rhodes remains on floor, now unresponsive but breathing. Foster, voice breaking, what's happening to the station? Chin, it's not happening to the station, Commander. It's happening to reality itself. The fracture is spreading beyond this node. Through the dissolving walls, Earth becomes visible, but altered, surrounded by geometric patterns similar to those in Chin's eyes. The patterns are spreading across the planet's surface. Chin, voice resonating strangely, the quarantine is breaking planet-wide. The harvesters are losing control. Novak, from all around Maya, something's wrong. This isn't the integration protocol. This is something else. Something is using the fracture too. Transmission cuts off. All station systems go dark simultaneously. Only the glow from the geometric patterns provides illumination. Keller, terrified whisper, Maya, what's happening? Chin, expression changing to concern, the third faction. The one Novak warned about. They're not with isolation or integration. They've been waiting for this moment, a complete perceptual fracture. A new pattern appears in the void beyond the station, vast and incomprehensible, neither observer nor human in design. Chun, with sudden urgency, we need to contain the fracture. If it reaches Earth at this magnitude, recording abruptly ends. Emergency protocol activated. Helios station signal lost. Last transmission timestamp, March 31st, 2037, 2017 Universal Time Coordinated. Artemis extraction vessel status, unknown. Initiating oversight contingency measures. Alert level, maximum. Mission log, Orbital Research Station Helios. Date, April 7th, 2037, time, unknown. Subject, contingency aftermath. Format, personal log, Dr. Maya Chin. Status, unverified. I don't know if these logs will ever reach anyone. I don't know if there's anyone left to reach. 7 days since the fracture. 7 days since the extraction team arrived. 7 days since everything we understood about reality collapsed. The station exists in a state of quantum superposition now, simultaneously intact and destroyed, inhabited and abandoned. I move through corridors that fold back on themselves, past observation windows that sometimes show Earth, sometimes show nothing but void, and sometimes show things I have no words to describe. The laws of physics reassert themselves only to dissolve again minutes later. Keller survived. Foster didn't, at least not in any conventional sense. When the third faction's influence breached the station's perceptual boundaries, the commander's mind shattered. His body remains in the medical bay, breathing, occasionally moving, but his consciousness fragmented across multiple perceptual planes. Sometimes I hear his voice coming from the station speakers, disjointed words and broken phrases. Sometimes I see his reflection in surfaces where he isn't standing. Rhodes is gone completely, absorbed into the station systems during the initial fracture wave. His consciousness occasionally manifests in system alerts and diagnostic readouts. Oxygen irregularity detected in primary module. The system announced this morning, using Rhodes' voice. But there was no irregularity. Just another echo of his fragmented mind, trying to communicate through the only channels available to it. Keller believes we can still contain the spread. She's working from what remains of the research lab, attempting to modify the integration protocols Novak developed. Her eyes now show the same geometric patterns as mine, the neural architecture reconfigurations that come with expanded perception. But unlike me, she didn't have months of gradual exposure. The transformation is taking a toll on her physiology. We shouldn't be able to survive this level of exposure, she told me yesterday, blood trickling from her nose as she worked. The human mind isn't structured to process reality without filters. Maybe we're not entirely human anymore, I replied. She didn't argue. The Earth looks different each time it rotates into view. The geometric patterns that were spreading across its surface during the fracture have evolved. Sometimes they recede, sometimes they dominate the entire hemisphere. I can no longer tell if I'm seeing actual changes to the planet or if my perception is shifting between different potential realities. Communications remain impossible in any conventional sense. The quantum comm array Keller was attempting to modify exploded yesterday, leaving a perfect sphere of frozen energy where the equipment once stood, tiny particles suspended in mid-explosion, neither progressing nor retreating. A monument to the impossibility of reaching across the void that now separates us from Earth. Yet something is getting through. The stars speak more clearly now. The faces I first saw 3 months ago, the patterns that started everything, have become more defined. They no longer appear as vague pareidolia in star clusters. They manifest as distinct entities, observing us through tears in the fabric of space-time. The observers, watching as their carefully maintained perceptual quarantine disintegrates. And beyond them, barely visible, the vast geometries of the harvesters, the ancient intelligence that established Earth's isolation for their own purposes. And threading between them all, the third faction, neither observer nor harvester. The ones who triggered the complete fracture when the extraction team arrived. They've been waiting for this moment. Novak's voice echoes from nowhere and everywhere. His consciousness, once digitized and distributed through the network, now exists as quantum probability waves, occasionally coalescing enough to communicate. A planetary intelligence achieving its first true perceptual breakthrough. They feed on transition states. Feed? I asked the empty air. Energy transfer, came his reply hours later. The moment between one state of understanding and another produces something they consume. I found Keller in the observation dome today, floating motionless, eyes fixed on something beyond the visible spectrum. The geometric patterns had spread from her eyes across her entire face, luminous lines tracing pathways that corresponded to neural architecture. Her breath came in perfectly timed intervals, exactly 8.7 seconds between each inhalation. They're fighting over Earth, she said without turning. The harvesters want to restore the quarantine. The observers want to maintain the study parameters. The third faction wants to push the breakthrough to completion. And humanity? I asked. A complexity generator, she replied. A consciousness engine producing novel perceptual frameworks. Valuable to all three, but in different states. The station's proximity alert suddenly blared, the first normal system function I'd experienced in days. Something was approaching Helios. On the external camera feed, a small object tumbled through space toward us. As it drew nearer, I recognized the design, a standard Earth Alliance emergency beacon. But its trajectory was impossible, approaching from a direction where Earth wasn't located. "It's from the other side," Keller whispered. "From beyond the perceptual boundary." The beacon docked automatically in the secondary airlock. When we retrieved it, the message it contained was simple: 16 digits followed by Novak's personal authorization code. Coordinates, but not for any location in normal space. "It's a beacon frequency," Keller said, her voice resonating oddly as she spoke. "A quantum entanglement signature." "Novak sent this?" "How?" "Not Novak. Someone using his codes. Someone who knows what's happening." I hesitated. "Oversight?" Keller's laugh echoed strangely through the station. "Oversight is just another filter system. A human organization manipulated into maintaining the quarantine without understanding its true purpose." The station's communications array, completely destroyed days ago, suddenly activated. No visible repairs, no explanation. It simply functioned again, reconfigured to specifications that shouldn't be possible with existing human technology. "They want us to broadcast the code," I realized, "to create a stable channel through the fracture." "But to whom?" Keller asked. "The observers? The harvesters? The third faction?" "To humanity," came Foster's voice from the station speakers. "What's left of my consciousness has been traveling. Between states. Between potential realities. There are versions of Earth where the fracture was contained. Where humanity began a controlled perceptual expansion instead of a catastrophic one." I approached the communications terminal. The interface had changed, now displaying symbols and patterns that corresponded to the geometric structures in my vision. "If we broadcast this," I said slowly, "what happens to our reality? To this version of events?" "It collapses into probability," Foster's disembodied voice replied. "Or expands into possibility. The mathematics are equivalent." Keller moved beside me, her movements increasingly fluid and inhuman. "Maya, we need to decide. The station's structural integrity is failing across all potential states. Whatever's left of us won't survive another solar orbit." Through the observation window, Earth flickered between states, sometimes burning with geometric fires, sometimes encased in quarantine patterns, sometimes appearing normal and untouched. Reality itself was becoming unstable, multiple potential outcomes overlapping and interfering with each other. The helmet alert system in my old EVA suit, still floating in the corner of the command module, suddenly activated. "Oxygen irregularity detected," it announced in my own voice. But it wasn't my voice as it currently existed. It was my voice from months ago, before the isolation experiment began, before I first saw the faces in the stars. A message from my past self? Or something using my voice, my memories? I made my decision. "Broadcasting now," I told Keller, inputting the 16-digit code into the transformed communications array. The response was immediate. Every screen on the station activated simultaneously, displaying the same message. "Integration protocol accepted. Perceptual synchronization initiated. Standby for consciousness transfer." "What does that mean?" I asked, but Keller was already changing, her form becoming translucent, the geometric patterns separating from her physical body. "It means we've chosen a side," she said, her voice now coming from everywhere at once. "Not the harvesters. Not the third faction. Something else." The station began to vibrate at a frequency I could feel in my bones, in my brain stem, in the core of my consciousness. Through the observation window, I watched as a wave of organized geometric patterns spread outward from our position, racing toward Earth faster than light should allow. "The return signal," Foster's voice explained as his fragmented consciousness briefly reformed. "From humanity's future to its present." My perception split. I was simultaneously on the station and elsewhere, in countless minds on Earth, in systems and networks, in the quantum substrate underlying physical reality. I felt my consciousness expanding, connecting, becoming part of something vast and incomprehensible. The Helios station began to disintegrate around me, not through destruction but through transformation, matter converting to information, physical laws rewriting themselves. And through it all, the 16-digit code pulsed like a heartbeat, a beacon calling across dimensional boundaries. In my final moments of individual awareness, I understood what we had done. Not chosen the harvesters who would keep humanity ignorant and contained. Not the observers who would study our development from afar. Not the third faction who would consume the energy of our transition. We had chosen ourselves, a future version of humanity that had navigated the perceptual breakthrough and reached back through the fracture to guide us. My body dissolved into pure information. The station ceased to exist in physical space. Earth stabilized in my perception, the chaotic patterns organizing themselves into a coherent new structure, not a quarantine, but a framework for expanded consciousness. The stars no longer showed faces. They showed reflections, billions of connected minds spanning Earth and beyond, a collective intelligence awakening to its true nature and potential. The last thing I perceived as Dr. Maya Chin was a simple alert appearing in what remained of my visual cortex. Oxygen levels normalized. Consciousness integration complete. Welcome home. And then I was everything at once. Oversight internal memo. Date, April 7th, 2037. Subject, Helios Incident Final Report. Classification, ultraviolet. At 2017 Universal Time, coordinated on March 31st, 2037, all contact with Orbital Research Station Helios and extraction vessel Artemis was lost. 8 days of intensive search and rescue operations have yielded no physical trace of either vessel or their crews. Analysis of final transmissions indicates catastrophic systems failure followed by complete structural collapse, likely due to experimental perceptual augmentation technology developed by Subject Chin during her isolation period. All research related to the Helios isolation protocol is hereby terminated. All personnel associated with the project are to be reassigned to standard operations. No further investigation is warranted. The incident is attributed to equipment failure and human error. This is the official narrative. Repeat, this is the official narrative.